The fragile peace that followed the death of God and the end of the ancient war between the monarchs and the fragments of brilliant light is shattered when the outer gods, the Itarim, descend upon the now masterless world, hungry for its abundant power. As the apostles of Itarim pour through the dimensional gap, Sung Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch, stands as the final bulwark with his indomitable Shadow Legion and the dwindling rulers by his side. Despite their valiant defense, the enemies seem endless, and the defenders' numbers can no longer be replenished. The world tree has withered, and only death, not creation, endures. When the rear defenses collapse, exposing Earth to invasion once more, Sung Jinwoo is forced to make a difficult choice, torn between holding the front lines and protecting a vulnerable world. Against the ruler's protests, he orders Marshal Beru to Earth, resolving to unseal Suho, a decisive move that may shift the tide. As Beru races away, Jinwoo steels himself for the next onslaught, determined to face the relentless apostles of the outer gods as the war for existence rages on. In the bustling art museum at Hankook University, Suho's wall of ant paintings draws both ridicule and fascination from his teaching assistant, Lim Dog-yeon. Suho reminisces about his lifelong obsession with ants, an interest that bled into his art and his nightmares, where monstrous ants and armored knights haunted him, forcing him to fight, die, and start over in a terrifying cycle reminiscent of a game. Those dreams ended after the traumatic summer when his parents disappeared, just before the world changed for everyone with the cataclysm, the sudden appearance of gates and magical beasts that nearly destroyed humanity until a few awakened people fought back. As Suho's work is prepared for the student exhibition, a group of painting majors discovers a black swirling gate in a storage room. Fear turns to greedy curiosity as rumors circulate. Inhaling the blue mist from a gate might awaken magical powers, maybe even turn someone into a powerful hunter, the most prestigious and lucrative job since the cataclysm. The students, enticed by the vast riches even low-ranked hunters can earn, hesitate to report the gate, secretly hoping for a miracle. When the mist finally leaks out, the university building shudders, but only Suho senses the unnatural vibration. Moments later, Yang Chul, a student who'd visited the storage room, staggers into the exhibition, blue smoke pouring from his mouth and nose. With horror, the others watch as he is consumed by blue flames, then, impossibly, rises again, his charred body animated by the mist. The school alarms blare and panic erupts. As students try to flee, the burning Yang Chul attacks, his whip-like arms spreading the blue mist to others. Those struck by the burning mist collapse, only to rise again moments later, wreathed in blue fire, transformed into magical beasts themselves. Teaching assistant Lim, overwhelmed and unable to fight back as an E-rank awakened, desperately calls for backup, warning Suho that being touched by the mist burn means becoming one of them. Chaos and terror consume the exhibition as the mist burn spreads rapidly, turning victims into monsters before everyone's eyes. Chaos erupted in the art museum as mist burns multiplied and attacked relentlessly, driving everyone to the edge of panic. While teaching assistant Lim, the only hunter present, fled and abandoned the students, Suho instead chose to help. He grabbed the fire extinguisher and managed to temporarily suppress the mist burns, rallying others to do the same. Despite the improvised weapons not being lethal, Suho's actions gave the terrified students hope and the courage to fight back. Together, they pushed through the monsters and tried to escape, but the mist burns closed in from both directions. Realizing the others were in danger of panicking and trampling each other, Suho decided to hold the rear, letting the rest escape while he faced the threat alone. As his fire extinguisher emptied, he was cornered and engulfed by a mist burn. However, the creature encountered the abyss within Suho, a vast, devouring darkness that consumed the mist burn completely. Suho watched, bewildered, as the monster vanished and a mysterious message appeared, announcing his victory and a level up as if he had cleared a secret quest. Outside, Suho's friend Kim Da-yoon searched desperately for him among the survivors. The students, having seen Suho's bravery, were shocked to learn he wasn't even a hunter. Their worry mounted as Suho still hadn't emerged from the building. Teaching assistant Lim, racked with guilt, returned with professional hunters who were confused by the high number of survivors. As everyone's attention turned to the museum, A sinister, magical power began to surge from the building, signaling something even more ominous was about to begin. As the blue mist from the gate spread, the Hankook University Art Museum was transformed into a deadly, field-type dungeon, overrun by magical beasts called Mist Burn. Suho, inside the building, experienced a miraculous level up in reality, accompanied by a system window that revealed he had become a player and now had access to quests and a status window, just like in the games of his dreams. With his injuries healed and fatigue vanished, he received a quest to rescue survivors, their lives ticking down as the mist burns hunted them. Empowered, Suho found himself able to fight the monsters barehanded without injury, dispatching mist burns and leading survivors out of the museum, even as the number of people he could save dropped with each passing moment. Outside, hunters and staff gathered, alarmed as rescued students claimed Suho had fought the magical beast with his fists. They speculated that he had awakened, but worried for his safety as a D-rank dungeon promised much more dangerous threats. Inside, after defeating all visible mist burns and leveling up again, Suho was suddenly confronted by a massive, terrifying wolf that crashed through the ceiling. Realizing he was hopelessly outmatched, Suho made a desperate attack, but the wolf easily overpowered him, pinning him to the ground and preparing to kill him. At that critical moment, a bolt of black lightning tore through the ceiling. Descending from the sky, the king of ants, Beru, appeared in a dramatic display of power, effortlessly restraining the giant wolf. As Beru stood over Suho, exuding a menacing black aura, the situation shifted in an instant, and hope returned to the besieged museum. As Suho lay wounded from the giant wolf's attack, a monstrous, black armored ant emerged, towering, winged, and wreathed in shadowy steam. The sight triggered a rush of memories. Suho recognized the ant from his childhood dreams. The ant knelt before him, introducing itself as Beru, and called Suho my liege. Seeing Suho's injuries, Beru's demeanor shifted from reverence to wrath. With overwhelming killing intent, Beru launched an onslaught, utterly overpowering the giant wolf, tearing it in half and trampling what remained. The sheer ferocity of Beru's presence terrified everyone nearby, but to Suho, it felt comfortingly familiar, stirring a deep nostalgia. As Suho slipped into unconsciousness, he dreamed of his infancy, cared for by Beru and other ants, being fed, taught, and comforted. Beru, moved to tears, praised Suho's growth, explaining that he was meant to unseal Suho's power, but Suho had managed to do so himself. However, the seal was not completely gone. Beru handed Suho a shadow dungeon key, telling him everything he deserved was kept within. Beru warned him that great power required a strong vessel, advising Suho to become worthy of the strength he would inherit. With a final farewell, Beru said he had to leave, but hinted at his healing ability and promised they would meet again. Suho awoke in a hospital, disoriented and uncertain what had been a dream or reality. News reports confirmed the recent dungeon incident, and Suho realized his childhood memories of Beru were real. He was prompted to claim his quest reward, gaining a significant number of stat points, and examined his improved status window, pondering how best to use his newfound power. Parched, he opened the refrigerator for water, only to find a now small and adorable Beru inside, peeling an apple and sheepishly admitting he was stuck because he'd run out of mana. Beru returned to Earth, but was so depleted from the journey that he could barely maintain his form, now appearing comically small and light. Suho, baffled by the talking ant's behavior, learned that Beru was one of his father's loyal subordinates, and that his father, Sung Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch, was leading a desperate war in space against the outer gods, called Itarim. Beru explained that Suho was the heir to the Shadow Monarch, though Suho had no memory of this legacy. When Suho asked about his missing mother, Chahae, Beru was shocked to discover she was also gone, suspecting it might be the work of Itarim's agents on Earth. Despite Beru's panic, Suho felt oddly calm, recalling his mother's strength and composure. Realizing that only Suho could act on Earth while his father was away, Beru urged him to grow stronger quickly. Suddenly, a system message appeared before Suho, presenting him with a quest to enter the Shadow Dungeon and prove his worth as the Shadow Monarch's son, since his powers were currently sealed. Guided by Beru, Suho accessed his inventory and withdrew a mysterious key, the Shadow Dungeon key meant to be used on his own shadow. He prepared himself and activated the key, instantly plunging into a black and white abandoned city overtaken by nature, the world of the Shadow Dungeon. Despite the eerie atmosphere, The place felt oddly familiar and comforting, as if tied to his earliest memories. As he explored, Suho was attacked by a goblin scout. Reacting instinctively, he dodged the attack, disarmed the goblin, and killed it, retrieving its weapon. More enemies appeared, and when an arrow flew toward him, Suho instinctively used a latent power, ruler's authority, to stop it midair, which thrilled Beru. Suho's hidden abilities, dormant since infancy, began to reawaken as the real trial of the Shadow Dungeon and his destiny started to unfold. On the day Suho took his first steps, his parents were thrown into panic, not because he was walking, but because he had begun to fly around the house using a power called the Ruler's Authority, inherited from his father Sun Jingwu. Realizing the danger of such overwhelming strength in a peaceful world, Jinwu sealed Suho's power until he was ready. Now, with Earth under invasion, Beru, once a mighty commander, now shrunk and cute, unleashes Suho's sealed abilities, urging him to reclaim a world lost to monsters. Suho's first task is a brutal survival quest. Last 4 hours in the land of the Shadow Dungeon, a ruined city teeming with goblins. The goblins gather in swarms, summoned by horns, and Suho finds himself up against overwhelming odds. Relying on his inherited powers and quick reflexes, he arms himself with goblin axes and invests his stat points into strength, feeling his physical prowess surge. Despite facing injury after injury, he fights back ferociously, his resolve hardening as he learns the tenacity skill, which boosts his defense and dulls his pain. With Beru offering more exasperating encouragement than help, Suho adapts, using his ruler's authority to wield a floating axe for extra defense. Every fight wounds him, but each level up instantly heals his body, restoring his stamina and making him stronger. Goblins fall one after another, and Suho's tenacity pays off as he endures the relentless assault, leveling up multiple times through sheer willpower and grit. When the timer finally ends, the goblins scatter, leaving Suho bloodied but victorious among their corpses. Beru applauds him, though not without teasing, still calling Suho a helpless larva despite his progress. As Suho catches his breath, a message appears before him. His reward for survival, a rune stone bearing the power of shadow extraction, has been granted, hinting at even greater abilities awakening within him. Beru eagerly anticipated Suho's excitement when presented with the Shadow Monarch's core power, shadow extraction, but was stunned by Suho's underwhelmed reaction. Suho, well aware of how summoning skills were viewed as weak and cumbersome among hunters, considered the new ability mediocre, especially since most summoners were vulnerable and dependent on their creatures. He also thought the necromancer-type restriction, needing a corpse, was a considerable drawback. Beru, flustered, tried to emphasize the uniqueness and potential of the skill, but Suho remained unimpressed. Nevertheless, he accepted the reward, absorbed the runestone, and gained the shadow extraction skill. Suho soon noticed black smoke rising from the recently slain goblins around him, each displaying a prompt to use shadow extraction. Experimenting with the new power, he commanded the skill, and 3 shadow goblins clawed their way out of the darkness, manifesting as his first shadow soldiers. Still, their unimpressive size and strength disappointed him further. Beru, realizing Suho's low level limited the power's effectiveness, tried to reassure him that the skill's true potential would shine later, but Suho's doubts persisted. Fatigue and hunger overtook Suho, who hadn't eaten in days. He used the Shadow Dungeon key to exit the dungeon and collapsed onto his hospital bed in the real world, physically restored but mentally exhausted. Moments later, officials from the Hunter Association arrived to thank him for his actions at the university and to measure his magic power. Despite his heroic deeds, Suho's measured magic power only qualified him as an E-rank hunter, to the quiet disappointment of some staff. However, the team leader, Han Jae-hyuk, encouraged him warmly, seeing more value in Suho's character than his rank. As the officials left, Beru tried to begin a new explanation, but the hospital room door opened again, cutting him off and sending him sulking back into Suho's shadow. After 2 days of unconsciousness in the hospital, Suho wakes to find teaching assistant Lim anxiously waiting, full of apologies for abandoning him during the dungeon incident. Suho, unfazed, forgives him, and Lim, still feeling guilty but relieved, offers food and tries to comfort him. The conversation turns to Suho's recent awakening. Though he survived a D-rank dungeon, his measured magic power is only low E rank, surprising Lim. Lim insists that being E rank is actually safer and more stable than being a low D rank hunter, and offers to guide Suho into the world of E rank hunters. After Suho's discharge, Lim explains the division of labor and dungeon work, highlighting that E ranks are best suited for safe jobs like collection and mining, unlike D ranks who must join attack teams and face greater danger. Suho agrees to try mining, his first real job as a hunter outside of the Shadow World, and returns to the ruined University Museum where the latest dungeon had been. As Lim begins to show Suho the ropes, Beru suddenly emerges from Suho's shadow, startling Lim. Beru boasts about his knowledge of hunters, declaring the essence of a hunter is to dominate and kill, in stark contrast to Lim's practical advice. Suho, used to Beru's antics, restrains him, but Beru insists he must stay at Suho's side to protect him due to his weakness. Lim, now more cautious, tries to understand Beru, who introduces himself as a guardian, likening his role to that of an uncle. Lim asks if Suho is a summoner, surprised to learn it's rare for an E rank to have such a skill, but inwardly doubts the usefulness of a weak summon. Beru takes offense at Lim's skepticism, but ultimately stays close, insisting he will protect Suho. Once work begins, Suho receives a pickaxe and is greeted warmly by the other miners, who recognize him from recent news about the dungeon incident. Though his low rank garners sympathy, the miners encourage him, assuring him that a steady life is possible even for E ranks. Beru, however, is irritated by the camaraderie and urges Suho to focus on leveling up instead of mingling with ignorant fools. The miners are fascinated by Beru, mistaking him for a cute, if not particularly useful, summon. As the miners disperse to their tasks, Suho gets an idea and, instead of acting on Beru's violent suggestion to behead the miners, asks Beru to bring over goblin corpses from the Shadow Dungeon, hinting at a plan that involves using his unique abilities rather than traditional manual labor. Beru, still bewildered by Suho's calm practicality, protested the idea of using the powers of the Shadow Monarch for something as mundane as mining. Suho, however, reminded him of their current limitation. His powers only allowed him to summon 3 weak goblins. He recalled Beru's own recent summary of their mission: protect Earth by growing stronger, find the missing Hay Inn, and restore Beru's power so he could return to the front lines of the cosmic war. Beru had explained that to recover his strength, he needed to eat magical beasts, humans, or anything with mana, thanks to his innate skill, predation. Suho insisted that, like his father before him, Beru should only prey on villains, specifically those who threatened Suho himself. Back in the present, Suho decided to start with what they could do: mining monocrystals in a dungeon, using the shadow goblins as tireless laborers. Beru, resigned, munched on monocrystals. Even if they were inefficient, Suho's logic was to simply gather more. The miners accompanying Suho were amazed by the efficiency of his summoning skill, which let the goblins mine without rest, and joked about having to work harder to keep up with the newcomer. Meanwhile, deeper in the dungeon, the attack team of higher ranked hunters advanced, finding only low value wolf magical beasts and little excitement. That changed when they stumbled upon an ancient ruin hidden inside the cave. Tension rose as they speculated about boss monsters or rare treasures, since such structures often indicated something unusual, either great danger or great reward. Their excitement spiked when they discovered a strange sword embedded in the center of the ruins. One of the hunters, Kim Yong-jun, eagerly tried to pull the sword out, only to be stopped by a thunderous voice echoing in his mind, warning them against coveting the Fang Monarch's sword.